So far, we've just been beautifully holding here at this exact trend line. And the big question is going to be, what is going to be happening next year for Bitcoin? I think you're going to be surprised, and I think that this cycle is going to do something much different than what we have seen in the past. I mean, historically, as I've talked about in the last video as well, the Bitcoin price should be topping out around right now. And we've kind of used the exact same cycles we've used, for example, if you look at, for example, the exact distance here between the 2013 cycle, the 2017, the 2017, and the 2021. They're all 4 years apart exactly. And with this current all-time high being here, the previous one being in November 2021, that is pretty much exactly 4 years since the previous all-time high. And so again, every single 4 years, we basically have this all-time high. We have this big Bitcoin bear market cycle. But currently, we're basically at $110,000, which isn't too bad. But are we really going to be seeing the bear market right now? Is this going to be the all-time high? Is this going to be the end? Well, what is going to be quite surprisingly is that I think that is not going to be the case. I think, as I told you guys, I have a target here of about $200,000 here for this cycle. But I think the main important thing is that if I look here at funding rate, for example, it is extremely negative, which makes no sense. If this is going to be an all-time high, we're going to have to see extremely positive funding rate. You're going to have your taxi driver talking about Bitcoin, your parents talking about Bitcoin, your dog talking about Bitcoin. You're going to see Bitcoin on the news, all of that kind of stuff. That's the normal behavior we see around an all-time high. My views are going to be spiking. Crypto YouTubers are going to be massively popular, making a lot of money. These are the type of things that you're going to be seeing around the Bitcoin all-time high. But currently we're at $110,000, and it seems everybody is sleeping about Bitcoin. Do you even know what's going on with Bitcoin? Do you know what's going on with the developers right now? Do you have any idea about institutions which are adopting Bitcoin or laws? No, it seems everybody's just sleeping, and nobody's paying attention to the Bitcoin price. Back in 2021, it was much different. I mean, we had Elon Musk talking about Bitcoin. 2017, 2017, your taxi driver talking about, everyone was talking about Bitcoin. We're seeing none of that right now. This is extremely weird because we're at $110,000 and nobody's talking about Bitcoin. It seems like everybody has just forgotten about it. So what is really going on here? I think this is mainly just pushed up here by institutions. And this cycle was already weird from the start because we basically broke the all-time high before the halving, which was very, very weird. So I think overall I think we can kind of maybe remove the narrative of these 4-year cycles, and we are going to be doing something new that we've never seen before. And it's kind of logical because all of these cycles have been kind of driven by retailers, and now institutions, which are less emotional, more long-term planning, they're buying Bitcoin, and it would probably be logical that we're going to see kind of a different price development, maybe less these kind of explosive moves to the upside, to the downside, maybe just a more slow grind to the upside. So this cycle is going to be, again, completely different. I do still think we're going to have like a boom and bust cycle, but so far, nobody's going around on X right now saying Bitcoin is a bubble. Nobody's going around. If you go to the taxi driver and you're going to say, oh, you want to buy Bitcoin? They're like, oh, Bitcoin, wasn't that down? This is not going to be the Bitcoin all-time high. It doesn't look like it. So, again, it's my own opinion. I'm not financial advice. I'm, of course, just a random guy on the internet. But I think this cycle is just going to take longer time to play out, and I think it's just going to develop much different like we've seen in the past, but I still think it's going to be to the upside. So however it's going to be developing, I think in 5-10 years from now, you're going to be looking at a price that's much higher as today. So in terms of the short term, I do want to quickly talk about that, is that we touched here a 12-hour RSI, which is holding steady here. I got this long position open up $26,000. Still holding here my trade open on Blofin, as you guys know. So I'm just going to be waiting out here this trade and just going to see what is going to be happening. But kind of the main thing I want to talk about here in this video is, if you look here at all the global value of the equities, the real estate, the bonds, the money, everything together. And then here on the left side, you can see Bitcoin, which is absolutely tiny. And what Michael Saylor is also saying is Bitcoin is either going to go to zero or it's going to go to 1 million, which is either, if Bitcoin is going to be the global future world reserve currency, it's going to take all of its value, and all of this value in the world is going to be stored into Bitcoin. If it's not going to be the world reserve currency or the next world reserve, whatever currency, then it's going to be failing, because if Bitcoin is not currency, if it's not still going to be stored value, then it's basically going to be worthless. If there's going to be a computing currency out there which is going to be better than Bitcoin, then Bitcoin is not going to exist. There's only going to be one money. You don't want to live in a world where you're going to have 100 different types of currencies. That really doesn't work. If you're going to have a global standard and it's not going to be Bitcoin and it's going to be something else, then Bitcoin is going to fail. Now, the thing is you say like, well, isn't the US dollar right now the global standard? Doesn't it mean Bitcoin has failed? Well, Bitcoin has only been out for 10 years, which is, being a bit longer, but it's only been really popular since, I'd say, like the last 8 years, since like 2017. It's been really, really known. I say, basically the normal people in our population. So we basically had 8 years at a very short time to become a global world reserve currency. So it's obviously going to take a long time for that. But I think what you kind of have to see with Bitcoin is that Bitcoin is basically like it's either going to work or it's not going to work, and it's going to go to zero. And if it's going to work, it's going to go to millions and millions of dollars, and it's going to take over everything. And that's again going to be tying into this chart where you see all of this value over here. If Bitcoin is going to succeed, a lot of this value is going to go into Bitcoin. Because there's no need to hold real estate as an investment when you can just hold Bitcoin. There's no need to hold gold as an investment when you can hold Bitcoin. Saving is going to go into Bitcoin. Bonds, no need to hold bonds. You want to retire, you're going to hold Bitcoin. Equities, over speculating, it's not going to work. Art collectibles to store value, whatever, it's going to go into Bitcoin. Everything here is pretty much a store of value. And then we have here 120 trillion, which is basically money, which is all about, of course, spending and unit of account, payments, whatever. But you can see that most of the value in the world, it's all store of value. It's all storing value in something, if it's bond, real estate, equities, or art, or gold. And all that value is just going to fly into Bitcoin if it's going to achieve what I think it's going to be doing is just taking over the world and becoming a new global currency standard. And that's also going to become a store of value. So with that in mind, and then we're going to go a little bit more back to the short term, is what is really happening here with the Bitcoin price. Why is it so important? Is that all of these institutions, they are currently buying Bitcoin because they can see what I'm seeing. I mean, there are some smart people. It wouldn't make sense that the institutions are going to be buying after the retailers. We basically had a stage here of early adopters that have been buying all the way here. And that, well, I'd say probably we have some retailers and some speculative in between, but all the long-term holders are all basically early adopters. We're now in the phase where the next type of people who are going to be long-term holders are going to be institutions. And then basically after that, it's going to be the retailers, which are going to come in and then adopt Bitcoin. So we are currently basically seeing that stage here where these institutions are buying. We're seeing the slow grind to the upside. We're kind of seeing a flip here, probably some long-term early adopters selling into these institutions here. And that's why this is kind of a slow grind to the upside. But you're probably going to see a little bit more stable type of cycles right now. You're not going to see these weird impulses to the upside. Maybe these institutions, they're going to be taking some profits on the top, of course, and you're going to see some swings, but it's not going to be as radical as we've seen, for example, in 2017, 2014, or even 2021. So I think that could kind of explain here the slow grind to the upside, coming back here, and I'm just hodling Bitcoin, and I'll just see. I mean, I don't have to sell to the long-term retailers or the long-term institutions. I could just wait it out and see what's going to happen in 10 years. So yeah, regardless of what's going to happen here with this price action, you can just kind of wait and you can just kind of see, and you don't need to stress about it. So anyway, I want to end this video. Hope to see you guys in my next video. Bye-bye.